What's going on, guys? Austin Zaback here with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the top 5 things I've learned in the last 5 years of being a real estate agent. If you're brand new to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would take just a quick minute and just smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'm typically talking about finance, about business, about real estate, the stock market, and pretty much everything like that on my YouTube channel. So one of the first things that I really wish I would have kind of known getting into being a real estate agent were just the overall statistics and the average failure rate of real estate agents in the industry. So according to NAR, the National Association of Realtors actually has come out and said that about 87% of all real estate agents fail within the first 2 years. And that obviously is a really shocking statistic at first, but when you really dive a little bit deeper and look at the statistic, it really isn't that shocking after all. However, I really wish I would have known the statistic a little bit better, just due to the fact that, again, not that I'm gonna quit because I'm just not really that kind of guy, but I'm working in an industry full of a lot of other people that either do quit or never really take the industry that seriously to begin with. There are literally times where I'll try to get a hold of a real estate agent on the opposite side of the transaction to go ahead and put a deal under contract, literally to make them money, and they just don't answer their phone. I mean, it just honestly blows my mind. And that really is just because of a very low barrier of entry. Depending on where you live, it's about 80 to 120 hours worth of schooling, and then you go ahead and you have to pass a school test, and then a state test, and then a national test, and you're a licensed real estate agent. So let's just take a step back for a minute. It takes literally like 5,000 hours to go ahead and become like a barber, right? To like literally cut people's hair is like 5,000 hours. But you're telling me that with about 100 hours of schooling, I can sell people's biggest asset that they'll likely purchase in their entire life? That to me is kind of a shocking thing, okay? So essentially you have a bunch of rookie individuals in the industry that aren't taking the job seriously. They're certainly not entrepreneurs. They've never been in business before, and they're representing buyers and sellers on a very large purchase or sale of their home. Anyways, that's just one of the first things that I wish I would have known, kind of getting into becoming a real estate agent, okay? So look, if you're not a real estate agent and you want to become a real estate agent in 2021, then just kind of know what you're getting yourself into, okay? Where I live in Phoenix Metropolitan, okay, I actually live in Scottsdale, but in Phoenix, okay, in Maricopa County, there's about 78,000 real estate agents, which pretty much means that anywhere I go at any given time, if I go to Walmart or Target or I go sit down at the bar to drink a drink, the odds are pretty high that the person next to me or the person next to that is probably a real estate agent. So as long as you take that into consideration before becoming a real estate agent, then you'll be just fine. So shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that I've really learned over the last 5 years is that you have to dress for success. Now this is like way more important than you probably can even imagine. Studies have shown that dressing up will literally directly affect how people perceive you, how confident you're feeling, and even how you're able to think abstractly. So check this out, in 2014, Yale did a study, okay? And the study used 128 men between the ages of 18 and 32. And researchers had participants in mock negotiations of buying and selling. And those dressed poorly, okay, in sweatpants and plastic sandals averaged a theoretical profit of $680,000. While the group dressed in suits, on the other hand, amassed an average profit of $2.1 million. And the group dressed neutrally, right in between the two, they went ahead and netted a $1.58 million theoretical profit. So look, at the end of the day, I mean, those are just facts, right? You can't argue with facts. And I feel like we live in kind of a time and an era and a world right now where everybody's looking at social media and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and they're like,
yeah, Austin, but I can just wake up in the morning and I can just throw on a hoodie and throw on my sweatpants and just sit in my living room, on my coffee table, on my MacBook, and just do whatever I want.
And I'm telling you, you do not want to do that because you're never going to achieve the goal or the dream that you've set out to achieve, especially as a real estate agent. Okay, now really quick on this subject, you don't have to spend $1 million to look like $1 million. I always thought, when I was growing up, and I had a bunch of mentors in my life, I'm like, man, those guys are wearing some freaking awesome suits. And then I looked at them and I was like, there's no way I can afford that. I hadn't even sold a house yet. I hadn't done anything yet. And one of my mentors told me one day, he said, Austin, he said, you can look like $1 million on a budget. So if you're watching the video, okay, and you're on a budget, well, first and foremost, I highly encourage you to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, but then secondly, I encourage you just to shop at places that you can get nice clothes on a budget. For men, I would highly encourage you to go check out stores like Express, okay? Express, you can walk in, you can get a good fitting suit off the rack, okay? And it will fit you literally amazing. And I don't know a whole lot about women, but if you're a lady watching this, I went ahead and I asked a lady friend of mine, and she said you can go to Forever 21, Zara, or if you're shopping online, you can shop at ASOS, and you can get very good looking clothes as a lady for a very affordable price. So look, I promise you, just take this to heart and dress for success, and you will be amazed at all of the doors that open up in your life. I certainly know it did that for me. I had a ton more confidence. I was able to go out and I was able to really speak my mind. I was able to get through to people at a higher level, and honest and truly, at a young age, people took me a lot more seriously. And moving on, another thing that I've really learned over the last 5 years as a real estate agent is to know your market inside and out if you're becoming a real estate agent. You wanna study your market to the point where you know everything, to the point where if somebody asks you, what is on the corner of, blank and blank, you're like, there's a Starbucks, there's a Bash's, there's an Albertsons, and is in like this school district, and you just know everything about that particular market. So many agents just don't take the time to understand their market, and they lose the competitive advantage when they don't do that. I promise you, your competitors are putting in a ton of time and a ton of energy into understanding the market inside and out. So if you're not doing that, you're losing out automatically. And not only that, but the more that you know, the more that you can serve your client, right? And at the end of the day, why did you get into the business? Now, obviously you wanna make money, and I get it, but the more that you can serve your client, right? In any industry, the more that you can serve other people, the better off you'll be. The more that you can really explain to them thoroughly the good areas versus the bad areas, right? And the more that you can really articulate that, the better off and the more money you'll ultimately make. And not only that, they're gonna love you for it, right? They're gonna refer you to all of their friends, to all of their family, and you're gonna make a whole heck of a lot more money than you would by just selling one single house. And I promise you, in the long run, in the real estate industry, it is not about what you know, but rather who you know. But the thing of it is the more that you know, the more people you'll end up knowing. So I guess it's just kind of this big circle of like, I don't really know, but trust me when I say you wanna know a whole lot and you wanna know a whole lot of people, and that will serve you best. For example, right now, it is a red hot seller's market. Depending on when you're watching the video, it is a red hot seller's market in Arizona right now. The days on market is extremely low, the supply is also extremely low, but the demand is extremely high. I could literally tell you exactly how many months supply there is in the state of Arizona. And right now, there's about a 1 month supply, which is honestly just insane. Now, a healthy market's about 3 or 4 months, and a red hot buyer's market is 6 months and up. But see, how would I be able to explain that to anybody if I didn't fully understand the market? If I didn't fully understand how to look at the numbers, break down the numbers, consume that information, and then be able to articulate that information back to somebody else. You hear everybody in real estate all the time say, what do they say? You could probably tell me right now, okay? You drop in the comments section below if you know what I'm talking about, where everybody in real estate says this one phrase. What do they say? They say, location, location, location. But how could you possibly know what the good locations are and what the bad locations are if you don't fully understand the market? Another massive thing that I learned over the last 5 years as a real estate agent is the terminology of real estate is extremely important. Now you're like, Austin, what in the world terminology of real estate? Like, what are you talking about? Look, terminology is everything in real estate. For whatever reason, this is an industry where people are throwing out like lingo and like slang terms, and you're like, if you're brand new to the industry, you're like,
What is this guy even talking about? Like, what's a FISBO? Like, I don't even understand what that is. Like,
then there's all of these different slang terms that I'm about to tell you a little bit about that you're gonna wanna memorize and fully understand as soon as possible. For example, somebody's gonna throw like a DOM at you, and you're like, DOM? And you're like, oh, days on market, I get it now. Or like, HOA, and you're like, what's an HOA? And you might know what an HOA is. If you live in a community, you probably pay an HOA, but it's homeowners association. Or a prequal, you're like, what's a prequal? You're like, somebody sends you over like an email and they're like,
hey Austin, can you please send me that prequal from like the other day from your client or whatever so I can put it in my broker's file? And you're like,
prequal, like what's a prequal? And you're just like banging your head up against the wall and you're like, oh, it's a pre-qualification form from their client. You've got terms like as is, which stands for like you're buying the property as is, meaning no repairs. You've got due diligence, which stands for like your inspection period. Depending on where you live, they'll either say due diligence or they'll say inspection period. There are literally so many different terminologies that you're gonna wanna familiarize yourself with as a real estate agent. And honestly, it's gonna make you look like you really know what you're doing. There are so many big lists of different terminology that real estate agents use and that you need to know overall in the real estate industry. I just encourage you to Google it a couple of different places and really just go ahead and familiarize yourself with all of them. Look, the more that you sound like you know, the better off you'll be. The more credibility you'll be able to build with other people. Credibility is everything. And ultimately, the more credibility you're able to build, the more real estate you're gonna end up selling. And the more real estate you end up selling, the more referrals you're gonna get. And the more referrals you get, the more people you're gonna meet. And the more people you meet, the more real estate you're gonna end up selling. Which basically equates to you making a lot more money. So you can just thank me by smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. The last and final thing that I've learned over the last 5 years of being a real estate agent is time management. Now you're like, Austin, oh my gosh, like either one of two things. You're like, time management is just like super boring. Or number two, you're like, of course, time management, like duh, like I got this. But I promise you, okay, if you're not used to it, it will totally throw you off. You'll be very surprised how inefficient your average real estate agent really is. And I've got a couple of theories for that, okay? Maybe you're used to working a 9 to 5, or maybe, every other real estate agent is used to working a 9 to 5. I know that I used to work a 9 to 5. And in a 9 to 5 setting, your boss is creating your schedule for you, right? Yeah, they kind of are. Your boss kind of tells you when to show up and when to go home and when to take your lunch break and like when to take out the trash and like the whole nine. But as a real estate agent, you're in control of your own time. And the problem with that is that you can do whatever you want, which is amazing, by the way, right? Like that's why most real estate agents get in the real estate industry. They're like, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. And like, that sounds amazing on paper, but the reality of it is that is a blessing and that is a curse. I promise you, okay? So check it out. You wake up in the morning and you're like, I can do whatever I want, right? Great, like I got nowhere to be, like I can either make calls or I can text or I can like post on my Instagram or I can post on my Facebook or I can post on my LinkedIn or I could like go play some golf and just like network or I could like go to the bar at noon and just like drink a beer and like talk to the person next to me, see if he has a house he wants to sell. But the problem with it is that it's totally chaotic. You have no idea what is actually working, what isn't working. And at the end of the day, you're just winging it all the time. You never really know what it is that you need to be doing. You don't know what your MMAs are, which stands for money-making activities. You really are just kind of like shooting in the dark and expecting to make a bunch of money. So I highly encourage you to start tracking your time and really understanding, what each individual thing looks and feels like. How much time does it take? How often do you need to do that, right? Let's just say that you love making phone calls. Great, you should make phone calls then. But how many hours in a day are you gonna do that, right? Are you gonna do it for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? I don't know. But you can't just get on the phone and wing it, right? Because then ultimately that isn't a business. You're just shooting in the dark, expecting to get lucky. And also like really prioritizing, right? Like there are so many amazing applications out there. You've got Google Calendar. There's like literally Google, like how to prioritize, like there will be like a ton of information on it, right? But understanding that certain tasks are more important, right? And you want to prioritize those particular tasks over other tasks. There's a quadrant system that I highly encourage you to look into and really take advantage of. And that quadrant is called the time management matrix. There's basically 4 boxes, okay, two rows and 2 columns, and it's basically important and less important, urgent and less urgent, okay? And depending on that will depend on what you do in any given scenario. So if somebody just like calls you on the phone, right? And maybe it's like a buyer or a seller, right? And they're looking to buy or sell like immediately. That is pretty urgent and pretty important. You wanna do that immediately, right? But maybe, somebody else calls you and, it's not that important of a phone call, right? They're trying to sell you on something, they're trying to pitch you on something, whatever it is. Then ultimately that particular thing, it could be delegated, it could be like put on the back burner. Like there's an entire quadrant and I want you to really study it and understand it fully that I promise you will change your life forever. So basically it just tells you like what to do right now, what to do an hour from now, what to do tonight, and what to do like maybe like once a week. It also kind of gives you an understanding of what you should be doing and what eventually you can delegate to other people. Which is probably my last and final thought, and that is, as you start to get established as a real estate agent, you really want to learn the art of delegation, right? Delegation will change the game for you, and you can do a bunch of research, but every entrepreneur in the world will tell you, or business owner, that delegation is actually like the key to success. Because ultimately, you might be really good at everything, and in the beginning, you might be a buyer's agent, you might be a seller's agent, you might be a transaction coordinator, you might be a listing specialist, you might be a cold caller, you might be the marketing person in your business, you might be, you're doing all of these different roles, and you might be good at them. Honestly, most entrepreneurs are. But that doesn't mean that you should do that forever, right? Eventually, you have to delegate certain tasks so that you can do what you're ultimately the best at. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the top 5 things I've learned in the last 5 years of being a real estate agent. Now, there's probably a bunch more, and I'm happy to make another video on it. So if you liked the video, I would really appreciate it again if you took just a quick second and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Drop into the comment section below what questions you have. If you want me to make a video on something else, I will. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you went and just checked out all my links down below, and also subscribe to my podcast, okay? We interview cool people all over the world. We also talk about life, business, money, real estate, the stock market. Heck, we even give relationship advice from time to time, although we probably shouldn't, okay? So guys, I really appreciate you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.